Talking about multiplying variables. I'm gonna do a little quick demonstration of how you're supposed to do it. So we're gonna make b our variable, and we're gonna make it to the power of m. Right, b to the power of m. And I'm gonna do, when they're just written right next to each other, it just means multiplication, by the way, too. So we're doing b to the power of m times b to the power of n. And all you're gonna do is add the exponents. So you're gonna have the same base. We're just gonna add the exponents. So b to the power of m multiplied by b to the power of n will give us b to the power of m plus n. So if I had x times x, you can write it this way. You can write it with parentheses too. It doesn't really matter. Or you could draw with a little dot in the middle, like right here. That all means multiplication. You would have x, right? Same base. And then we're just going to add the exponents. And we can pretend there's a 1, right? We could pretend there's a 1, x to the 1, x to the 1 here. So we're just adding the exponents. So when we had x times x, it would be x squared. Here's another problem. So we're multiplying these two together. We're going to get x3 plus 2. And then you can simplify it more by just adding these two. So you get x to the power of 5. And that's your answer. That's how you multiply variables. When we have something like this, however, let's try x times y. You can't add the exponents because the only way we can add the exponents together like this is if they're both the same letter, the same variable. So when you're multiplying x times y or any other variable, it doesn't really matter. All you're going to rewrite it as is this. You just write xy without the parentheses. This is implying multiplication. So yeah. So this would be just xy when you're multiplying these two together. When there's numbers attached to it, so like we have 3x squared. This is the coefficient. The coefficient is the number in front of a variable. And when we multiply this by another coefficient that has the same variable, right? It's the same as multiplication. We're just going to multiply the numbers together. So 3 times 4 is 12. Keep the variable the same. And then we're just going to add the exponents. So we're going to do 2 plus 2. And our final answer is 12x to the power of 4. And that's how you write it. If we had something like this, this is a bad example. It isn't even the example I wanted to show. So we had something like this. 3x times 3y. Well, we can multiply the numbers. Numbers doesn't really matter. We can multiply the numbers together, and we'll get 9. But we can't multiply the variables, so we could just write xy. So when multiplying, you can multiply the numbers together. It doesn't matter if they have the same variable or not. But when they have different variables, you kind of just have to write it like this. But if I had something like this, right? This one has two variables, an x and a y, and this just has an x squared, right? Again, you just multiply the numbers. Doesn't really affect the numbers, how you work with those. So it's just 3 times 3. And then all we're going to do is, with the same variables, we're just going to add the exponents. So we're going to have x 2 plus 1, right? We pretend there's a 1 right here. And then just put a y right here. And then to simplify everything, you can just rewrite it as x to the power of 3y. Okay? So you only do this addition of the exponents when they're the same variable. If they're different, you could just write them right next to each other. It's the same thing. So It's multiplying. So, right. So that's how you multiply variables. You can only multiply, like, you can only combine them when they have the same letter base, the same variable as their base. I'll talk about when they're different bases but same exponent in another video. But this is how you're supposed to multiply variables together. So yeah.